Hi, I'm Tony, and welcome to my channel, Watch Time LA. Hello everyone, and welcome to Watch Time LA. Today we're going to be talking about repairing a crystal. First, I want to get a myth out of the way. It is impossible to remove a scratch from a crystal. What do I mean by that? Well, you can fill a pothole, but you can't remove a pothole. And I was trying to figure out the best way to demonstrate this as it relates to a crystal. And I came across the perfect solution as I was cutting my nails, my fingernails that is. If you look at my fingernails, I took one and I got my wife's buffing kit. By the way, the lines going this way are old age. And I took my wife's buffing kit, and as you see, I got my nail polished to a high luster going horizontally. Now, what I'm going to do is I am going to put a nice size scratch. Can you see that? In my fingernail. Let's put a couple of them in there. Now you see those scratches, they're pretty obvious. Imagine this was a crystal. The only way, now if I was my wife, I'd run down to the nail lady and she would fill it in with some acrylic and paint over it. But I'm not going to do that. So my options are very limited here. I can fill it or I can repair it. I can't remove the scratches. All I can do is make the area around the scratches blend in with the scratch. And I have to do that by putting finer scratches around it. Now, I could start with the buffing part of this and do this for about a week. And eventually it will get those scratches to appear that they're gone. But in reality, what I have to do is I have to go to a much coarser grit first to save time. In this case, you see how this is like a gritted foam. And what I'll do is I'll take my fingernail and I'll do that for a minute. And now you see my fingernail has no luster whatsoever. But I have completely removed, well, almost removed those scratches, a little bit more. Close enough. Now I'm going to take the various parts of this and very quickly, fast motion, I'm going to get back to I'm going to go 2 or 3 grits, going smaller and smaller in grit until eventually, and here I am again with my shiny nail, or part of it anyway. And those scratches that I put in there are now gone. But what I've really done is I've removed material from around them using a coarser grit and then slowly going down to the point where it was nice and shiny and smooth again. Now behind me here is a whole bunch of crystals. One of the things about scratches on crystals is the lighter the dial, the harder they are to see, which is a good thing. If I take this dial from here, doesn't look too bad. But now as I start playing with the light, you're going to see a bunch of scratches appear in different areas. There is one at the top, about 12 o'clock. One right at 9 o'clock, right there. You can see it's a pretty deep scratch. But because it's a white dial, it's kind of hard to see, except there where it goes through the 8. Let's look at a medium colored dial. Still a little bit difficult to see the scratches, but as I start playing with the light, you start seeing that this thing is badly scratched. Wherever the dark is behind it, you can start seeing the scratches. So with a crystal, it's all about playing with the light. Now here's a crystal that looks like there's something wrong with it. That is all on the inside of the crystal. This crystal actually doesn't have a single scratch on it. It's actually very, very clean. This is a cheap fashion watch, doesn't even have a name. But this looks like a throwaway, but if you just take the watch apart and clean the inside of the crystal, this thing will look brand new again. And for an example today, this is probably one of the toughest crystals to deal with. These domed crystals. First of all, it'd be almost impossible to find a replacement for this. These numbers are, these Roman numerals are actually part of the crystal. They're not part of the dial. So however this cheap guess watch was put together back in the day, this is all blacked out. So there's 3 layers here. There's the glass, there's this gold leaf, and then behind that is the black. So you can't, you may be able to find a crystal for this, I don't know where. But if you see that you have a black dial and these little, these aren't even as bad as some of the other ones we saw, but you see those gouges stand out, and because of the curve of this crystal, you can see them in almost any angle. So we're going to use this as our guinea pig to remove, no, we're not going to remove, to repair these scratches. And you can hear my pick, hopefully, you can hear my pick catching on those. That's how deep they are. Okay, now, a couple of things about crystals. Crystals come in all different sizes and shapes. They come in ovals. They come in all different types of rounds, all different kinds of polygons and rectangles, and you name it, they come. Now, some of these crystals are virtually impossible to find, and a good watchmaker will duplicate these by cutting them. I don't have the patience for that. But some of these crystals in my hand here are in different states of repair from me. This one in particular, you'll see that there's some deformation in the glass. That's because of the work I'm doing on it, trying to get some of these crystals out. Now, why am I wasting my time on this one? Because I know I cannot find a replacement for this, nor am I going to sit there cutting glass. But eventually, this thing will look smooth enough or clear enough to where it's passable. And let me give you an example of one that I finished yesterday. This Citizen watch had a crystal that was so badly scratched you could barely see the dial. I'm going to put up a picture of it right now, a before picture, and here it is after. Now you're going to see some deformations in the glass, but what you're not going to see are scratches. And I don't know how close I can get this, but we're going to try. You're going to see slight deformations all around the edges. I'll caution everyone up front. If you have a $10,000 watch, or a $5,000 Breitling, or a $50,000 whatever, do not try this at home. I do this on mostly fashion watches and, you know, some upper $200, $300 watches. But mostly when I get to that stage, what I do is I buy a new crystal. Now, I have a bunch of different crystals. The problem with crystals is you just can't have every one. Crystals come in different dimensions, as I said. Not only do they come in different diameters, in fact, the diameters of these crystals, you have to have an exact micrometer. Without one, you will almost always get the incorrect one. They come in increments of 0.1 and sometimes 0.15 diameters. And they come in different thicknesses. This one happens to be, we're going to call this one 1.2, would be a good replacement. This one is a 1.0 exactly. This one is 0.85. This one is 0.95. So you have to make a determination. There's no way you could possibly carry every crystal of every dimension, of every size and every thickness with 0.1 millimeter differences. You would have to stock thousands and thousands and thousands of crystals. Now, here's the MOAB of crystals, right? Some of these crystals get very, very thick. Now, I'm not going to push this very tightly because I don't want to scratch a brand new crystal, but here's one that measures in at about 2.6 in width. This is something that you'd see in one of your dive watches. This is a mineral glass crystal, and they're very inexpensive. They're about $2. That's it. So you have to decide before you start messing with a crystal, is it worth my time? A watchmaker is probably going to charge you $20 or $30 to replace this $2 crystal because he's going to clean it, make sure it has a new battery, whatnot. You could do it yourself for $2. Plus, of course, you have to pay $5 for the shipping on the crystal. So the shipping is more than the crystal is. You know, choice you have to make. Or if you have a lot of time and a lot of patience, you can try repairing a crystal. And in a second here, I'm going to show you some of the things I've tried in the past. Okay, one by one, very quickly. This is a little contraption that I made with a sanding disc. I popped it through on a mandrel here, and I sometimes use this. I've tried this device on a drill press, where the drill press is going around like this, and I hold a crystal to it. That has worked in some cases. I've tried different grits. These are pre-gritted buffing pads, all different types of grits. I've tried a very heavy buffing compound. This is made for steel actually, but it actually works fairly well on some mineral glass. It won't even touch sapphire. And believe it or not, this is going to be my favorite. You take a piece of sandpaper, slide it in here, and this just kind of flops around. There are also these sanding discs. These will gouge any crystal and leave it virtually unusable. And then for final product, there's a company that sells something like this for 15 bucks. It's basically diamond paste, right, in different grits. So I have a whole pile of these that go from grits 14 down to 0.5. And I think I paid, I don't know, $8 or $9 for 10 different grits. There's a company out there, I forget what it's called, that does these for $15 for one tube. But the problem with that is it's only one grit. So if you have a seriously scratch watch, you could be there all day like I showed you earlier with the nail. If you're just using the fine grit, you're going to be there all day. Now, before we go any further, I want to give a shout out to Jay Anthony. He just did an excellent video on removing or repairing scratches on a crystal. And it just was coincidence. I was in the process of doing mine when I saw his. And I give a shout out to him because he's one of the guys that I first saw when I started getting into this. You know, he seems just like a real guy, a real nice guy. You know, he's not a watch snob, and he's not the kind of guy that I see who lives and breathes watches. He has a regular life and a regular job, and you know, it's just a passion and a hobby. And it was, you know, like for me, a therapy session, so to speak. Helped me get through some tough times. But anyway, I'm giving that shout out to him because I love his channel. I want it to keep going. I myself have thought of throwing it in even after only a couple of months. But I keep finding things to talk about, and when I don't have anything to talk about anymore, I won't do them. I'll just watch other videos. So let's get on with repairing a watch crystal with no further ado. Okay, first things first. By the way, this is not going to cost you a whole lot once you get the stuff. I think you can get all in on this for about $10. But I'll go through the issues as we come up. First thing we're going to do is, if we're going to polish a watch and we're going to use some sort of high-speed Dremel or drill, you absolutely need to pop the movement out. If you don't, especially on a quartz watch, you are going to fry something in there. So first thing we're going to do, pop the back off. We're going to pop the back off. Going to take the spacer out. Going to pop the crown out. Every movement is different, but this one happens to come out this way. And we're going to place this in a clean, dust-free, moisture-free box. You could use anything, the wife's Tupperware, whatever. Just make sure you put it in a safe place so as not to get dust and dirt and grime all over it. Okay, so now we have our watch and our crystal. Okay, we agree that it's pretty nasty in a couple of spots. And if you look on the inside of this thing, if I go to push this crystal out, it might even break, but you can see the gold leaf in there. Okay, so we're going to clean this all up in the inside when we're done. But for the sake of this, let's go after one at a time. We have a pretty heavy-duty one at 730. We have another one up at 12 and one smack in the middle. Let's just go after one at a time. Let's just do this one first. First things first. Okay, piece of 600 sandpaper. Stuff you get at Home Depot, you can buy by the yard, right? I'm going to cut a piece of this off. Doesn't have to be too accurate, but I'm going to say about 3/4 of an inch wide. These Dremel bits, you can get them at Home Depot or a hobby shop for $5 or $6 each, or you can get them on eBay for a dozen for about $1.50. And that's where I got mine. Just be patient in getting them. Now you see what this is going to do? We're just going to slap the crystal very lightly at first to see what kind of, because each crystal has a different hardness, and you're not going to know what kind of hardness you're dealing with until you start touching it. So I'm going to take a Dremel tool. I have a foot operated one where I press it, the harder I press it, the faster it goes. But you can use any kind of Dremel tool. You can use a regular drill. You can use whatever you want. Variable speed is best, but it's not necessary. Okay, so I got my Dremel all hooked up. I'm going to start working on this scratch at 730. I will hold this in my hand to give you the best view. I'm working around the camera, so please bear with me and watch what happens. Now, all I'm doing is I'm looking through the sandpaper. I can actually see the scratch. Had a little sandpaper mishap there, but here we go again. Now, I could use 800, 1200, 600, whatever, but I have to start somewhere. I have to see how hard this crystal is. And I'm just barely applying enough pressure to get to that scratch. Let's see what's happening. So you'll see the glass around the scratch is now becoming cloudy. Now, it looks like this happens to be an extremely hard crystal. So I'm going to use a little bit more pressure. Every once in a while, making a correction here. I'm not worried about that right now. I gotta get to the meat of this. I gotta get to the level of that scratch mode. This stuff nice and okay, so I've been going at this now for about 3 or 4 minutes. And as I do this, I just tear off another piece and it gives me a new surface to cut with. And we're gonna keep going here because I'm not quite there yet. So actually, at some point, when it gets rough enough, the material actually just cut away faster. Again, watch like this, you have to watch it. You're never going to find a crystal for it, so when they work it, and in this particular case, it's probably not going to be perfect. But I think I'm good enough where I want to do step number 2. Okay. Let's see what we got. I would say that we've cut away most of that gouge, or enough to do some finishing. Okay, just so this doesn't turn into a trilogy, I'm going to try and go a little quicker here. You'll notice that I got several buffing wheels. Again, you can get these on eBay, like 20 of them for a couple of dollars. I've written on them, this is a 10, this is an 05, and this is a 5. And they correspond to my diamond paste, right? I'm not going to use the same one on both, because if I happen to use this last on the pad and then I go back to this, what am I really cutting with? The pad actually absorbs the cutting paste, so you have to have a pad for each type of paste. Now, I could go step by step by step down, but for this demonstration, I'm not going to do that. So I am going to now go to that area. I'm going to put a little bit of number 10 on there. That's, I don't know whether it's 10 microns. I don't know exactly how they measure it, but it is a diamond paste. It's set in an oil base, and that's so it doesn't just, if it was set in water, what would happen is the water would evaporate from the heat, and then it would just be powder, and the powder would just fly away like a very fine talc. So I'm going to take my buffing pad, and I am going to start slowly working this in. And like I did with my fingernail, you see, because it's in an oil base, it stays firmly on the crystal. It doesn't try and fly away. It does spread around, but it doesn't tend to fly away. And you might see some smoke at some point, but you're also seeing, if you're seeing smoke, you're probably going a little too fast. But the good thing about this stuff is at some point, you also have a chemical reaction. You're not only buffing, but because of the heat, you're actually kind of melding or morphing the glass to kind of run a little bit. If you do it too much, it'll have a terrible defect in it. But if you do it just right, you'll get the glass to melt a little bit, and that's what we want. Now, normally I don't hold it the way I was, and you saw it flying around everywhere, but I was doing that for the video. Again, I'm still using my 10. Again, for the sake of the video, I'm skipping a couple of grits in between, and I'm going right to a very fine grit, which is 0.05. Okay, I have a cotton candy machine thing going here with this particular buffing pad is falling apart on me. So not a good choice of pads for this operation. Okay, so if you remember when we started this, it was about 6 minutes ago. There was a scratch so deep right here that it caught, the tool would catch in it, and you could actually hear it go. That scratch is all but gone. Probably could use just a little bit more, but for the purposes of this, when you're looking at the dial now, you cannot see it. You can still see this one. You can still see the one up here, but the deepest scratch that was in this dial was right here, and for all practical purposes, it's gone. So that's how I do it. I had one buffing pad that completely disintegrated on me. This thing has a long way to go, so I'll probably take this one out, and I'll take this one out. I'm not going to take them all out, but just thought I'd show you how that was done. Get these diamond pastes, you can get them on Amazon. I think it's about 8 tubes or 10 tubes for $8. Get some buffing pads. The most important thing is getting some 600 grit sandpaper, which you can get by the ton at Home Depot. I also have 1200 and 800 and $2,500 for very delicate items. And get one of these mandrels. They just have a little split in them, and you just slide the sandpaper in like so. And if everything goes according to plan, you get a watch that looked like this, and in a short amount of time it looks like this. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please let me know by liking it below. Leave any comments or questions you might have, and I'm always looking for some new subscribers. Subscribing to my channel makes me want to do more. I hope you enjoyed it. Again, a shout out to Jay Anthony, and thank you for everything you do, and appreciate your time. See you next time.